I've lived in Nampa for a greater part of my life, so let's help you figure out what it is actually like living in Nampa, Idaho. I'm going to walk you through my experience living in Nampa, the good and bad of living here, some of the things that don't get talked about, and what is new in 2024, so you don't make the mistake of moving here when it isn't the right fit for you. I've lived in Nampa for a lot of my life. My siblings all live there, my parents, and plenty of friends. I lived there as a kid, as an adult, and before and after some of the growth it has seen. Growing up in Nampa it's okay. There are things to do. There's plenty of shops and restaurants, and where my parents lived and where I lived when I was younger was the nicer part of Nampa. So we had a new community with newer homes and stores around us, and then a lot of farmland still surrounding the homes. In high school, I lived in Nampa, but I spent most of my time in Meridian, given I went to school in Meridian. And even to this day, friends and family that live in Nampa often run their errands and do fun things in Meridian or Boise. So even though Nampa does have places like the Idaho Center for concerts and events, or the Civic Center, parks, you have Lake Lowell for your hiking, boating, and spending time outside, it's kind of just a B version of Meridian and Boise. For some people, it isn't a problem taking the 15 to 20 minute drives to go do stuff, or they don't need the things in Meridian, and it works out great. But that is just the overview of growing up there. It has changed as an adult, and there are still major issues to go over and things to expect moving forward. As an adult, I used to work in downtown Nampa. The downtown area has been upgraded a bit over the years, but there was always a little bit of filth and only a few shops and bars worth going to downtown. We also had a major pigeon problem, and there still is a problem down there, adding to some of that filth. But the important experience to know about that I experienced was this. I had a coworker's truck, and he had an ATV, a four-wheeler in the back of it, and it was stolen from our parking lot 20 feet away from the front window of our office in the middle of the day. Right before lunch, we called the cops. The cops couldn't find it, so we took our cars out, and we looked for it ourselves after work and ended up finding it on our own in the worst part of Nampa, which I will talk about here in a second, because as a real estate agent here, I want to make sure that your move here is smooth and you are truly informed and happy with where you end up. But shoot me a text or a call anytime. I look forward to meeting you in person in 2024, where things are always changing here in the valley, including Nampa, getting a few new things. The most notable might be an In-N-Out. Ever since the village in Meridian opened an In-N-Out, there are plans for 3 new locations all over the valley, including the one in Nampa. But the problem with the one in Nampa is that it is proposed at the Karcher exit, which is already extremely overcrowded and gets really busy during the weekends or rush hour. And it gets so busy that you can actually lose signal on your phone, which is why I always avoided the area during rush hour, because who wants to just listen to the radio and not have that phone service. The only other new growth, aside from some of the homes that are always popping up in the valley, is there's going to be some more industrial buildings coming to Nampa, which is a problem for some people because of the eyesores that are already there as you drive through town, and an unpleasant smell you'll hear about in a second, but let me know if you think you know what it is. Nampa has a ton of industrial zoning. So there is an Amazon warehouse at the Garrity exit. As you drive through town, you will see warehouses, and lots of them, and it can be that eyesore that I talked about. There is also a dairy factory and a sugar beet factory, which causes the whole city to smell horrible. And depending on where you are and where you live and the direction of the wind, you can get hit with that smell pretty much daily. It is a complaint almost everybody has with Nampa, and one of the many things to watch out before deciding to move there. Another minor thing to watch out for before I get into the worst con of Nampa is the commutes. You're going to be working in Boise or Meridian. Your commutes will be 20 to 40 minutes depending on traffic and weather. And some people think they can handle it, but after a year or two, it can get draining, especially after you kind of adapt after a year. I hear family and friends complain about it all the time, and I see it cause problems. So be aware and be prepared. But if you live right off of the interstate, like a place just north of Garrity exit where there is some new communities there, it isn't as bad because of that easy access to the interstate. Plus, if you live in the northern part of Nampa, you are in the better areas where there is less crime and it is much nicer. Now, with all of these problems, why is it one of the fastest growing places in Idaho? A big part is how affordable it is. Nampa is much cheaper by almost $100,000, and sometimes people want to save that money and be able to purchase a nicer home. Or for a lot of locals here, and especially first-time homebuyers, it is the only place that they can really afford. So a plus there is you can save a lot of money and maybe live out by the vineyards or Lake Lowell on some land because you work from home and you don't need to drive into Boise all of the time, or you're retired. So you can take advantage of that major discount. But the biggest problem is definitely the safety in certain parts of Nampa. I told you about the situation I experienced downtown, and the place we found the truck was in the southwest side of the railroad tracks, which is known for being a bad part of the valley. My friend's wife was a principal in this area serving impoverished children, and I would hear human trafficking stories. You hear them on the news. There's gang shootings that pop up every once in a while. And when I look at a home, I always check the sex offenders list. And parts of Nampa have a much higher concentration of registered offenders, especially around the downtown area and then that area across the railroad tracks that I specifically just told you about. Now, we talked about the worst part of Nampa around downtown, which is helpful for people looking at Nampa, but there are 4 other areas that you need to know about in other suburbs. So watch this video here where I go into detail about the 5 most dangerous spots in Boise.